Welcome to the OK Not OK podcast. I am Dr. OK, and today I answer this week's OK question of the week. Yet again, no one asked a question on X, so be sure to go to @DrOK on X. It would really be a great Christmas present for the doc here if you would do that, because right now we're at Thanksgiving, and I am stuck with that big turkey, the gobbledygooker, the SportsZu, asking yet another question. So, SportsZu, let me have it. Doc, the men's Survivor Series teams didn't quite work out the way that you thought they would. So what do you think about the fifth member on each team? Alright, SportsZu, you ask a lot of War Games questions for a person who apparently does not like War Games matches at all. So we'll go right back to that yet again, but I do want to note first, since last week when we replaced 40% of the women's War Games roster, and of course Jade Cargill is now injured and out of this match. So Bayley is the replacement. Of course, we would have put in Kairi Sane, as we already thought was the better answer here, as she goes along better with Io Sky as a damage control tag team, and now Io will have to deal with Bayley and vice versa after their big feud, so who knows what could happen between those two during this match. So let's get to the actual question here, and we'll start with the new Bloodline. Is Big Bronson Reed the best choice for the fifth member for this team? Well, that is a complicated answer here, more than you would think. So let's start with the pros. Well, first, this is just a big man who can deal out a lot of big damage in a hurry. He knows how to put people on the shelf for weeks at a time with those devastating tsunamis. In a match like this, if he were to jump off the top of the steel cage onto someone with a tsunami, they could be out for the rest of their careers, let alone weeks at a time with a regular tsunami. So Big Bronson Reed seems to be a good fit there. But there are certainly cons as well. Many of them, in fact, more than you would ever guess. So first and foremost, this is a man who works alone. Can you imagine that in his 2 years of being in the WWE, he has a total of 0 tag team matches? That's right, not a single one. This man is a lone wolf, if ever there were such a thing. And he just does not know how to team with anyone in any sort of match, so that could be a big, big problem. But what if we expand that to multi-person singles matches where he could have temporary alliances with someone to take someone out and then go on and win the match for himself? But his results there are not really very good, as he is just 1-5 in those matches this year. And if you expand that all the way to the beginning of 2023, he is 2-11 in all multi-person singles matches. Whew, okay, well, let's talk about him being in big matches, because I certainly would think the new Bloodline takes this to be a big match, and certainly it is on track to be the main event of Survivor Series War Games. So Big Bronson Reed has never been a champion in WWE, and in fact, he is 0-5 in all title matches, losing the US title 2 times and the IC title 3 times. So that's not working out very well in his favor. Anytime he comes up with a chance to win a big match, he loses. Let's expand that to other big matches. So I would say the last Monster Standing match would qualify as a big match, and he fell in that one. Maybe it was due to Seth Rollins' interference, but nonetheless, he did not get the job done. Speaking of Seth Rollins, his first PLE match against Seth Rollins, well, he showed some good resilience by being able to get up quickly from those stomps, but after the third one, he did in fact lose the match. He got some revenge on Monday Night Raw, but that was with some help from the new Bloodline. So he pretty much just loses every match that really matters. So that is a big negative for him for this new Bloodline. But even when he's in a simple one-on-one match, which is his primary environment, the results are mixed, I guess you would say, as he is exactly 500 at 8-1 in those matches this year. And if you extend that to all singles matches, he's 9-13-1 in 2024. So he's just not winning a whole lot of matches to begin with here in 2024. Again, another big red flag for the new Bloodline. But with all of these negatives building up against Big Bronson Reed, the question is, who could the new Bloodline have found that would have been better? So if we just go down the list here with some options, well, let's see if Big Bronson Reed remains the best person. So first and foremost, Drew McIntyre is simply injured, so there's no way to get him. If we stay on Monday Night Raw, some good choices would have been Braun Breaker or Sheamus, but of course they're dealing with each other. We know Solo Sikoa also tried to recruit Seth Rollins, which makes sense if he really wanted to get some more revenge on Roman Reigns, but he turned him down, so it was a good try. Now let's flip on over to SmackDown, where you could ask for Carmelo Hayes. Of course, we know he's still under 500 in his record as well, so that's probably not a great fit. And then let's expand to Logan Paul that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Sure, that would be good as he has some history with the OG Bloodline and was the United States champion for quite some time, but unfortunately, he's just nowhere to be found, so maybe Solo does not have his cell phone to even ask him that question. And of course, I would have liked to see him go with Kevin Owens, but it probably would have been a step too far to really ask that question if they didn't put a bloody Cody Rhodes right at his feet. But of course, they're just going to stay in their own little circle there, so I think this is okay for him to pass up on KO for right now. So the only person who possibly could be better here is Finn Balor. He is in fact your tag team champion on Monday Night Raw, and he's pretty much been a tag team champion for the last 2 years, with just a few months in between of not holding those titles, and it doesn't even matter who it is that he holds the title with, whether it is Damian Priest or now JD McDonough. He's still there to be a tag team champion, and at the end of the day, this is a tag team match. You did just see that tornado tag team match between the LWO and American Made on Monday Night Raw, and well, this is just actually a bigger version of that. Sure, with 2 rings and with a steel cage, but the bottom line, it is many people in the ring at the same time, all being able to fight each other, and then there is just one official pinfall at the end, so that's really it. It's just a big, big, big tornado tag match. So in a match like this, someone with a lot of aggression like Finn Balor would be the perfect person to add, especially since he already has been in a War Games match and knows how these work pretty well, so there could be some good synergy there for sure. But between Balor and Reed, I guess I do have to admit that it's a close call, and Big Bronson Reed does just kind of seem to have the vibes that go with the new Bloodline. They just seem like they'll have some good synergy in the ring and really want to punish the OG Bloodline. Now, of course, Big Bronson Reed is a big, big dude, so we can't expect him to be one of the first couple in the ring. So if he's probably the 4th or maybe 3rd member in the ring, he can have enough stamina to last the entire match to be able to help out the new Bloodline. So at the end of the day, we will say that the choice of Big Bronson Reed is okay. So let's flip on over to the OG Bloodline, where it appears that CM Punk has saved the day for the OG Bloodline, as they had agreed to actually go into this fight and die together 4-on-5. So the fact that Punk is back to make this an even matchup of 5-on-5 really goes a very long way for the chances for the OG Bloodline. Now, of course, that did take Paul Heyman returning after several months off since being triple powerbombed through the announce table by the new Bloodline on the June 28th episode of SmackDown. So let's start with the pros here. Well, first and foremost, they appear to have gotten one of, if not the best in the world, by getting CM Punk, who is coming off of winning his rivalry against Drew McIntyre 2 matches to 1. And he's been off for a couple months now since the end of Bad Blood, so he should be pretty fresh to be able to go full bore in this match. So with CM Punk being a former champion and a Paul Heyman guy, it certainly stands the reason that Heyman can be the force that keeps both of these together. So it appears that Roman Reigns, as we said last week, has a horseshoe stuck right on up the middle of his behind so that he and the rest of the OG Bloodline have a chance, just a chance, to be victorious in this match. But let's flip on over to the cons. So I have to admit, is something wrong with the picture here? Something is just not quite right. I can't quite put my finger on it, but why would Paul Heyman finally come back after all of this time? Let's go back all the way to WrestleMania when Roman Reigns lost and then disappeared off the face of the earth for 4 entire months until he showed up at Survivor Series. But for Heyman, he just kept trucking on with the Bloodline as it was, now with Solo Sikoa. But it was Paul Heyman who pulled Roman Reigns out of the draft without speaking to him, as Heyman admitted that he had not spoken to Reigns since WrestleMania. So that just seemed to continue every single week when Heyman had to reiterate that he had not spoken to Reigns, and Solo eventually officially declared himself as the Tribal Chief. And Heyman, as we said many times then, is a really bad actor, and he really needed to keep his emotions in check. But he just was not able to do that, as we could all see that he was in severe distress trying to help out Solo Sikoa's new bloodline. But even that entire way, Roman Reigns was nowhere to be found, and eventually it cost Heyman getting injured going through that announce table. So after that powerbomb, Roman Reigns did not immediately come back to get some revenge on Solo Sikoa for that attack. He simply let it go all the way until SummerSlam over a month later. And even with Roman Reigns returning at Survivor Series and being on our screens on SmackDown for a good portion of the episode since then, well, Paul Heyman was nowhere to be found, and we found out just 2 SmackDowns ago that Paul Heyman disconnected his number so that Roman Reigns could not even contact him. So clearly those two were not in any sort of communication since WrestleMania. So when Paul Heyman watched SmackDown a couple weeks ago, did he immediately call Roman Reigns with his new number and tell him his plan? Well, no. Roman Reigns was as shocked as anyone when Heyman appeared with CM Punk last week. So that's just kind of weird, right? That those guys would not have interacted and Heyman would not tell Reigns the plan. So instead, is Paul Heyman now a CM Punk guy instead of a Roman Reigns guy? Well, I guess we'll find out. But even if that's the case, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as everyone is in alignment for this particular match. But Paul Heyman is known to change sides at the drop of a hat, like we saw when Reigns put out his hand for Heyman to hand him the title bout in his match against Brock Lesnar. And sure enough, Heyman walked in with Lesnar and out with Reigns. So is he gonna walk down the ramp with Roman Reigns here and then out with CM Punk at the end of the night with something screwy happening? Man, that possibility does exist. So is that what's going to happen here? Or is this just business as usual? Because, come on now, Paul Heyman had the best time in his entire career being able to sit at the table with Roman Reigns during most of his fraudulent 1,316-day title reign. So that had to be really good for him throughout that entire time. So to throw that all away for an aging CM Punk who may not be the best in the world anymore, seems a little far-fetched, right? Instead, if he has a 4-member OG bloodline to be the wise man for, he could be right back beside Roman Reigns at the table with all of the food coming to him. So our guess here is that Paul Heyman really just saw the bat signal go out when Roman Reigns called him on SmackDown, so he just acted the way that he knew how to do. He called in a favor to CM Punk, and sure, after all of their time together, Punk probably owed him something, so this is just a way for CM Punk to get right back into action after almost 2 months off, and a way maybe to get back into the title scene if he can find a way to win this match. And of course, it might just be a better idea to be on the good side of Roman Reigns as opposed to the bad side of him. So while CM Punk is the second city savior, it stands to reason that for this match he will be the second best bloodline savior. However, even with CM Punk, they are not guaranteed a victory at War Games. And while I would say that the new bloodline appears to be a much more together force and will probably just be way too strong for the OG bloodline, at least now it stands to reason that the OG bloodline has a chance to win this one. So of course, with that and with no other options available for the OG bloodline, this decision gets an obvious okay. On Monday Night Raw, Jey Uso announced that he would be facing Jacob Fatu in the War Games Advantage match on Friday Night SmackDown. But to see how I graded that segment and all the other ones from Raw, be sure to go right on over to here and check that out. Because if you missed that, that would be not okay.